Hi everyone and welcome to Gaffer and Gear. Today's episode is a back to basics. And what we're going to talk about today is how I remove unwanted shadows off my actors or talent when I'm working in an environment such as a shopping center or a factory. So when I'm working in these environments, one of the first things I do with the cinematographer after we've figured out where our actors or talent are going to be positioned is what lights we want to get rid of in that environment. So for example, we might have an actor standing here and there might be some lights in the ceiling that are casting nasty shadows. We identify the ones we want to get rid of before we start putting in our own lighting. Let's take a look at this simple lighting setup for example. We've got a key light, a backlight and some negative fill, but we were getting some really ugly shadows from the lights in the ceiling. So we decided to just cover the lights that were giving us problems. So essentially what we're doing in that sort of scenario is making sure that where our actor or presenter is standing, there's no unwanted lights. We're creating a void where there's no shadows. And then we bring our own lights in to add the shape that we want. Now the one thing you have to bear in mind if you're going to be doing this is you need lights that you can color tune that match the lights that are in your background. Now in this setup here, we had some down lights that were giving us some really ugly shadows. And we couldn't just turn them off because they were on the same power circuit as that entire section of the shop. So instead I masked them with what we call cinefoil or black wrap, which is a film and television heat resistant product. But here's the thing with down lights. If you've got the old halogen style down lights, the ones with the light bulbs, and you just cover them over flat like that, there's a chance that you could create a fire because you're trapping an intense amount of heat. Now, even if you've got LED bulbs that are cool to touch, you also don't want to completely blacken them out like that because they've got air vents. They need air circulation to keep them running cold. So here's what I do with my cinefoil. I have it curved and mount it to the ceiling like that. Now I'll make sure I've got a big enough piece of cinefoil that it is going to mask all of the light, but I also have enough room front and back for air to circulate past the cinefoil. Now here's a quick tip for you. Let's say you're in a house or somewhere like that and you want to mask out a downlight, but you don't have any cinefoil. Well, what you do is you just go to their kitchen and steal a bit of tin foil. The fact that it's silver isn't going to make any difference in this situation because it's going to bounce the light back up and not onto your set. So in this setup here, we're shooting in a department store and it's exactly the same principle, except I'm using C-stands and cutters instead of cinefoil. So the cutters are removing the light that we don't want and we're bringing our own lights in to add shape. Now I do the same thing in supermarkets. In this setup, I have a bigger cutter removing the shadows on her face from the light overhead. And I did the same on this setup, and on this setup. Now in all of those setups, I've been in the situation where I can get a cutter in front of the light that's giving us the shadows that we don't want. But what if you're working somewhere where you've got dozens of lights spaced out and they're all giving you shadow problems? Well, that's where diffusion frames come in handy. Now in this interview here, we're only filming this much of the person, but we're using a 12 by 12 over the top on purpose. Now that might seem a little bit overboard, but if we use something smaller, we would get shadows from all the lights on the periphery. We need a massive diffuser to make sure we cover all of the lights that are throwing shadows in our direction. Now on this angle, you can see all the different shadows coming off the 12 by 12. In fact, the 12 by 12 was only just big enough to give us relief from the unwanted shadows. All right, so that was a pretty quick back to basics episode. Now here's something else to consider. You don't necessarily have to turn off or mask out the lights that you don't like. You could move the position of the talent. So for example, let's say this is a person and we've got a light over the top of them that's giving them nasty shadows under here. If we move them forward, you might be able to use that light as a rim light or a backlight now. I'm Andrew Locke. See you on the next episode of Gaffer and Gear.